Now let's bring back in Jeff as well as our next guest. I believe a first-timer here on the Income Generation, our good friend Jim Lineweaver, founder and CEO of Lineweaver Financial Group in Northeastern Ohio, and also the author of a new book coming out October 20th. It's called Your Retirement Playbook, Ohio's Guide to a Successful Retirement. Jim, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Great to see you.
So first of all, I've got to applaud you because you've done really a niche book that includes America's heroes, or at least Ohio's heroes, our first responders, which I think is a group that sometimes gets overlooked when it comes to advice. So what motivated you personally to write this book?
Well, back in the latter part of the 80s, I actually was a police officer as I was putting myself through school and getting a finance degree. And so I was paying into the same pension plans and the same deferred compensation plans. And then I continued my education on at the Weatherhead School of Business and got into financial advising. But through the years, we just kept running into people that just kept making the wrong decisions with their pensions, liquidity issues to, supplement their retirement, how to make sure they minimize their taxes, maximize their benefits. There's a lot of talking that goes around on these departments, and sometimes that communication is more opinions than anything else and not facts-based. And a lot of times we just saw the mistakes over and over again that really can derail a successful retirement. So the reason for the book was to look at all the 5 state pension plans in the state of Ohio. They all have different nuances and moving parts, and it's really tough to put your hands or get your arms all the way around that so that you can make a good decision on all your financial, tax, legal, and insurance needs. And that's exactly what this book does.
Yeah, I find all too often people take that lunchroom advice that you were referring to before from a coworker, and occasionally it can be very good, but more often than not, it's not. It falls short of the mark. Jeff?
Jim, you are one of the most successful financial advisors that I have ever known. And I've been doing this a long time, almost 35 years now. Even though your book is more geared towards your career-centric experiences in Ohio, I'm really looking forward to reviewing it because I know that those experiences are really going to transcend every state in the country, even though each state has its own different nuances. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the pension area of our country between companies and states and municipalities. And so why don't you tell us, what should people be concerned today about a massive pension failure? Because we know pensions across the board, specifically in a lot of the states like Illinois and several other states, they don't have the funds to keep their pension going. So, what's going to happen with pensions if they become, let's say, they default?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that they're trying to head off that eventual problem, right? Because, the private sector, the majority of them got rid of pensions a long time ago and then brought in the 401ks. And even on the nonprofit side, went to 403Bs and these 457s. So what you're seeing over time is that the pensions are trying to head off some of this major problem. They see it, they get all the actuarial studies. As a matter of fact, back in May of 2017, the Hoover Institute did a study with pensions all across the country. And they looked at and found that there were 649 state pensions that were basically underfunded. And what was being reported actually as that liability turned out to be a lot lower than their estimates. Matter of fact, they should be as high as $3.8 trillion. Trillion dollars, and that's actually 2.8 times larger than what was actually being recorded. And also from the state pension side, when you're looking at the amount of revenue as a percentage of pension that they're contributing on their employees' behalf, on average, it's around 5%. And their study found that they actually, if they want to make sure and bring everything back up to par, you're going to have to get closer to a 13% of revenue contributions for the employees. So there's
Jim, is a huge amount right now in this COVID world when states are really, they're concerned about their own revenues. So we need to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a minute. You stay with us. We have much more to come right here on the Income Generation. Welcome back. I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, and also a new friend to the income generation, Jim Lineweaver. So Jim, you're saying that it would be 13% of budget, not 5% of budget, to get these states and municipalities caught up as a general rule. But at least the good news is that, at least in theory, states themselves can't really go bankrupt. So they've got to find a way to fund this. They could change the benefits moving forward, but they've got to fund at least a deficit up to this point, which is more than we could say. I mean, you heard Robert Kiyosaki's concerns about the average pension in corporate America, right? A lot better than we could say about corporate America, correct?
Correct. Yes, there is a certain safety net there. And that's actually why people work for municipalities and police and fire and school systems and teachers. I mean, they want to rely on that pension down the road. So it's not all gloom and doom, but you have to be proactive so that you don't jump into retirement like a lot of people have done in the past. And all of a sudden, you're paying $500 or $800 a month for healthcare that you didn't plan on, or a lot of other things that are creeping up that can blindside you into retirement. So it's more important than ever before to really be proactive when it comes to these pensions and put yourself in the driver's seat as opposed to just the rearview mirror.
And that's where things like the deferred comp plans come in, the 457 plans. And for you viewers who are listeners who are, maybe you don't have a 457 plan, maybe you have a 401k plan, maybe you have a 403b plan. It's really all the same. And all those plans are basically limited to mutual funds for the most part. So what do you tell people, Jim, when you're trying to get them to take matters in their own hands? Maybe they've got several years to go to retirement. Benefits could get frozen at some point. So you're encouraging them to take matters in their own hands. I know you are. What are you telling them?
Well, always pay yourself first, just like anybody else. Make sure you're trying to max out those pre-tax contributions to a 403b, 457, things along that nature. What we also want to do, which is so critical for people with pensions, because if you're married, you're going to choose some type of survivorship option. And a lot of times, if you take a life-only option on the pension, you'll get a lot more money, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 20, 30 years. But how do you then take care of your spouse? So we lock in their insurability with term insurance, maybe a 20-year period of time. And then when we go to do their retirement planning, if they have a health condition or something that popped up, they can look at converting that to something permanent, locking in a higher pension payout so they have more to live on in retirement. But there's a lot of other things to consider as well, like Social Security and income generating investments as well.
Sure. And that's what I love about pensions is you're talking about investing by contract on the show, and essentially that's what a pension is, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it really is. You're investing by contract there. And so speaking of investing by contract, that sounds kind of similar, Dave, to some of the other things we discuss all the time. But when we look at the underfunded pensions, and I want to come back to this for a second, Jim, it's in the trillions of dollars. We know these pension funds have to invest in common stocks to derive a very high rate of return because they've got to be able to meet their needs for their payouts and their future expectations. But as far as the other remaining retirement assets in your book that you talk about, like the 457s that Dave just mentioned, I'm sure that you're taking a conservative approach with those dollars in retirement. So tell us about what's the correct approach for the teacher, the fireman, the policeman, the people that have those types of 457 plans with their intangible holdings. What should their philosophy be in today's market?
Well, today you got a lot of volatility coming up. You got the elections, headwind from China. I mean, you got high unemployment. The PPP covenants are now gone, so that these companies can now lay off if they did receive the PPP. So a lot of uncertainty, and obviously the market doesn't like uncertainty, and that's going to get added volatility. So look at income producing things, try to get a little more conservative, especially if retirement's around the corner. You can look at individual bonds, you can look at preferred stocks, you can look at other things that can provide income producing things, and that'd be outside of your 457. Inside, if we have to stay to mutual funds and things along that nature, we're going to go to the short duration on the yield curve, maybe intermediate term to short term bonds for the time being, and then try to find other things that are good dividend producing holdings. Because at least in the state of Ohio, they only offer about 23, 25 holdings. Our 457 plan provides over 400 offerings, or a lot of different options. Sometimes some of them offer up to even 1,000 or 2,000. So we can really customize the portfolio to match their risk tolerance and goals and objectives to get them ready for retirement.
Jim, 30 seconds. How about fixed interest funds? It wasn't too long ago, people had a 3% or maybe even a 4% fixed interest fund as an option in some of those deferred comp plans. Do you see any 3%ers anymore?
We can, believe it or not, because they've gotten the ETF side, even though it can't be inside there, the mutual funds are going after more indexes. So we can still get maybe, and it's not easy, but it's hard, but get in that maybe 3.5% range, but you're not getting much over 3.5% these days.
But not a fixed, just not a fixed guaranteed account, you're saying?
No, you're not. Those are
ETFs, income from that. Gotcha. Again, Jim Lineweaver, your retirement play handbook. I think it's a great buy, even if you are a public servant in another state. Go out and get the book on Amazon. Jim, thanks so much for being with us today. Really appreciate you having here, as usual.
Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity.
And you stay with us. We'll be back here in a moment on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.